Okay, so here we are looking at Josh, and I've been trying to catch Josh doing this for some time. Let's just see as he goes along. There we go. Whoa! We have a big breaststroke kick, and he does this time and again. I've been trying to illustrate it to him, but more than that, this video starts showing something with Josh that we really want to see, and we really want to improve. Now, if we take his arm that's just about to stroke, you can see that he's pushing it down level. If we go there and there, you can see that he's pushing it down in a straight line, and really all we're doing here is pushing that way down, and we don't really want that. What we would like to do, if I clear that, is have the arm there and then from the elbow point down, and then what we would be doing is actually aiming backwards in the water, which is the direction we actually want to push because we want to go forwards. So we're seeing something there with his right arm. Let's just take this forward a touch. You can see he's doing exactly the same thing with his left arm. So there, and he's trying to grab the water with the hand. And that hand is pushing that way, but everything else is pushing that way. And where he's actually grabbing the water is slightly further on, there. He's just starting to grab the water there, and he's really got it there. But the arm's incredibly deep, and that puts a great strain on the shoulder right here. So there's a huge strain on that shoulder there. And what we'd like to see is, again, arm out, down, and then we're trying to develop forces that push that way, preferably that way, but we can accept that that's not necessarily going to happen. That's an ideal situation, and that's what we've got to change with Josh from this. Okay, so let's take a look at Josh from the other side, and again we're looking first at his right arm. And you can see it's pushing straight down, and that is where he's grabbing the water. So let's take a marker on that spot, and we'll mark that and drag it forward, and that's where he's grabbing the water, just about there, and his stroke ends there. So we're losing about a quarter, 25% of his stroke from not grabbing the water early, and clearly that's something, if at all we can, we want to avoid. Let's look at the other arm, and we'll put a marker at the front. There he's grabbed the water. Not drawn that particularly well, but you get the picture. And there about his finishing his stroke, just about there, which is about there. And again, that's about 25% of his stroke he's completely missing because he hasn't grabbed the water. It's far easier to improve someone if you're using 100% of your stroke length as opposed to using only 75% of your stroke length. So again, on both sides we've got a similar story. Another thing we see with Josh is that he has a habit of moving his head through a tucked position into a forward facing position. So if we look here, we have a tucked head. That's the sort of line, well, perhaps not that bad, but his head's in that position, which means his body is actually in that position, being slightly dragged through the water. And we don't really want a tucked head. Some people tuck a head the other way. They tuck a head down that way and their body's flat. Well, if you tuck a head that way, the water is actually aiming at that part, so you're actually driving yourself down in the water. We don't really want to tuck a head. Josh hasn't got that. As I say, he's got a straight head and the body's coming down in the water, which is something we don't want. So what we've effectively done is drop the hips there. We don't want that if we can possibly help it. And you can see what Josh does next. He looks forward and turns his head out the water. Now it's way too lifted, so we're moving the head far too much. The ideal position in the water is about there. That's the position we really want. And if you notice, what's happened here is Josh has straightened out. So his hips are now on the surface of the water, and that's what we want to see. If we take this forward, takes a breath, over rotating, tucks the head again, and as he tucks the head, the body's slipping downwards from the surface, rotates, and if he keeps his head in the right position, his hips remain steady, and on the surface, otherwise he drops those hips as we saw before. So we don't want this tucked head that we see there, because that is going to always push the hips down. You can't do anything else. If you're going to effectively get into that position, then there's only one thing that can happen, is something's got to drop. Either your head's got to drop or your hips have got to drop. In Josh's case, it's definitely the hips. But the position we want him to be in is just about there, looking slightly forward and down. You can see that, forward and down, and that straightens out the body and keeps your hips on the surface. So that's probably a good pointer for everyone to look at.